Okay, so the first, I'm doing my 4.2 evidence for students will analyze learner needs to design appropriate online instruction. And my first evidence for this is my group presentation in Education 654. Okay, so let me get to that. Not there, sorry, I'm having a hard time finding it. Not there. Okay, here it is. All right, so I thought I could just present and show you this. This is a really fun assignment for me. For one, I got to work with Dr. Temple, who is a hoot. Not a better word to describe Dr. Temple than he's a hoot. But he also was my very first department chair when I was teaching at Northwood High School in Chatham County. And also, so I really enjoyed working with him. He's funny and brilliant. And I also got to work with Karen, who was really focused and not an educator. So she brought like a different perspective in from the business side of things. So that was kind of interesting. And so I'm not sure if there's a recording of this or not, but it was probably the parts that were presented. Dr. Temple took a lot of time, of course, in his part, but this was kind of our agenda for the meeting. We all read the book, Excellent Online Teaching, Effective Strategies for a Successful Semester Online by Aaron Johnson. And so we did introductions, we had agenda, goals, and objectives. Dr. Temple went over the course design and structure. Karen Mace went over the course content, and then I went over creating community. We all kind of contributed to the mini book review and the review and wrap up and fielded some questions. And so I'm trying to see if I can see the bottom slide. And then we went over any reminders, okay? So I'm just going to go through these slides with you for reference here. Okay, there's Miss Mace, Miss Karen Mace, and she was employed at Catawba County Social Services. She was a department head at a nursing home, manager of public assistance programs, developed training for employees, married to her high school sweetheart, avid fisherman, and so forth and so on. And there's a picture of her. We wanted to make it personal. Obviously, I was trying to be funny here. So try to get people's attention with that silly picture. But I've been teaching high school English for 16 years. I went to Carolina. Dr. Temple was my English department chair. I taught in three different school systems in North Carolina. Also been a literacy facilitator. I teach WCPSS English 1 and 4 to long-term suspended students at the time, and I also worked in NCVPS and OCS blended and credit recovery programs. Have 5 daughters, semi-organized chaos, and you can tell by the picture there's my family. Dr. Temple, you know, his resume really long. He's got a lot of experience and is now the first director of online Master of Arts in Teaching program through the Graduate Studies Center in Asheville. So he's now settled into his new job. He had some fun trivia facts here. He played semi-pro baseball, had a tryout with the Braves. Funny about Brad Pitt from a distance and a Star Trek fan. Okay, so he was my mentor. Those are all true. And so I thought A Journey of 1,000 Miles begins with us. And so we were presenting about this book. And one of the things that we all agreed on about this book is whether or not you were brand new to teaching online or a seasoned veteran. There's definitely some takeaways and tools that can be of value to you as you become an online teacher. It's either a great review or reminder or a great resource for the novice. So you're probably wondering, you know, what do you do now? You've been assigned an online course. What do you do now? So the beginning steps to save yourself time is survey your course syllabus, consider all the different modes of communication and check your calendar. Who am I teaching? What am I teaching? How will I teach it? How will I know if the students understand it? That kind of a thing. What's going on the first week? Where and when will you engage your students? Is there some element or set of instructions on the course that you find confusing? What are the most demanding weeks of the course? Do assignments, build, read your syllabus over again. So these are just tips that the author gave to its readers. Modes of communication. We thought this particular set of questions was really important. I remember talking about this at length with both Dr. T and Karen. What are your preferred modes of communication? Like, do your students prefer email? Do they prefer a phone call or a text or a class discussion board? Are they comfortable with just with no synchronous communication? do you have this technology? Is it supported? Can you add this to your getting started unit or welcome unit to make sure students are prepared for the communication? Are you planning to break your class up into groups or pairs during the class to do any work? Do you know how to do this? If you're putting them in a group, like in Canvas per se, are you familiar with how that works? Invite requests for feedbacks. Tell yourself, ask your students, over communicate. Hey, what did you like well about this? What didn't you like well about this? Would you guys like this? Okay, so consider a program like Evite for reminders, things like that. Or you can even do announcements in advance to remind. They have assignment reminders, but you can also do announcements and preset them even before the course starts to remind students of like what's expected weekly. If you want to communicate that announcement weekly, remember this is what's going on for the week. And also let your students know what the turnaround time will be. 24 hours is optimal, but be upfront. Like on the weekends, I might not respond within 24 hours, but I'll get to you as soon as possible. Are you going to go on a trip during the course? There'll be a stretch of time during the course when you won't be available, or you won't be virtually there, present as often. Talk to your students about them, forewarn them about that. Schedule virtual office hours during the course at key junctures before major assignments or tests, or even set up a meeting, a virtual meeting, a one-on-one meeting, or a class meeting, an optional meeting, so students can come in and ask those questions and engage and interact. Whatever platform you're using, set up a course calendar and mark those dates, remind students. Remember that some of your students will be new to online learning, and be sure your schedule works for the novice as well as the expert. All right, so send out a welcome message. This is a really important thing. Once your students are assigned to your class, establish your presence right away. Communicate that you intend to be actively involved in the facilitation of learning. Set up mass emails to students or announcements. Provide encouragement. Do a little course survey to find out, is this your first time online? Sometimes students freeze during the first week because they don't know where to begin. So determine the most important 2 or 3 things students need to know first and put those out there. Is there a discussion board or some other assignment due? Is there a reading they should concentrate on? Maybe they need more gentle reminders at first, more so than maybe you think you need to do. Just make sure you're reminding. Define the relationship between you and your students. Invite them to contact you. Put your contact information, even if it's probably on the syllabus, also put it on the home page. Send them an email with all the ways to, or a message in Canvas with all the ways to contact you, how you plan to be present, and then, explain expectations. And if the message gets too long, you might want to divide it into 2 messages, like do the most important couple of things first, or introduce yourself and ask them to introduce themselves first, and then go over some key things. There's a lot in the beginning. Okay, engage students, like use Flipgrid or a discussion board or some other means that give students a way, some way to ask you a question where you can answer. You should also answer the questions, but invite other students to answer too. If students have time to if they have a question and they ask it, maybe another peer can respond. If you can go in and check, respond, consider responding too. Also, email students individually the first week. Save time. Maybe come up with an email template you can quickly individualize. All right, so how do I communicate with my students after the class gets started? Here's the 4 strategies of effective online communication. Consider using emoticons often. Send out a Monday morning email or a weekly email. You can put those in a folder. You can save them for the next time you use the course. Address the students by name. If your course is set up in modules or by weekly events, you can even copy and paste that in. This is what we'll be working on this week. You can even link it out in Canvas, okay? Address students by names, right, whenever you can. Read student emails carefully. Sometimes we just scan things because we're so busy, so don't miss important things. And if you don't understand something, ask for clarification. Schedule a meeting with a student who seems to be struggling. A great Monday email. Where do you start? Review the course site for the week. Look ahead. See if anything major is coming up. Make sure your subject line is interesting. Use something like week 12, the 2 things you need to know, or 3 reasons to start on your paper now, or why you want to begin your interview process now. So make your subject line something that grabs their attention. Provide a rationale. Why is this important? How does this assignment contribute to course objectives? Student wants to know how this connects and why this is important. Communicate expectations. Ask yourself, what am I most looking for from my students this week? As you teach the courses more than once, you'll be more aware of potential pitfalls pitfalls or things that may have given you trouble in the past. And then be positive and encouraging. Focus on individuals. Maybe Sandy lost a family member, or Leslie's been sick, or Bill did a great job in discussion. Take time to notice things. Kind of, a variation, as Dr. T put it on you can do it mantra. That picture. It's funny. Okay. All right, so he's finished with that. So here comes Karen, who likes Sheldon, right? Makes her even cooler, I know. So course content, set a goal, be brief, timing is everything, and be clear on purpose. So successful teachers have one common habit. It is a finely honed skill, and it's a skill at facilitating discussion. It takes time, but here's ways to get started. So really facilitating that discussion in whether it's discussion board or live conference or on a Google Doc or whatever it is. It's really important. Set a goal, be brief, timing is everything, be clear on purpose. So decide on the number of times you want to post each week and quit when you hit it. It is possible for your students with too many posts to cause a student to shut down. Be brief. The most effective response consists of a few sentences or a request for more information. Brief replies free up your time to respond to more students. And timing is everything. Engage with students the day the initial posts are due rather than the day after. Engage with them if you assign it on Monday. Engage them on Monday or Tuesday. Go back in and reply or engage on a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, Saturday. Don't wait until the day after it's due to go in there and say anything. And be clear on purpose. Spend time reading over the prompt to make sure it meets the goal of your discussion. Okay, so discussion boards are important, but they take up so much time. How do you save time and be an effective facilitator? Well, create a rhythm with your work. Break things up and reward yourself for what you've accomplished. Work for 90 minutes, responding to students, answering emails, and grading, then give yourself a little bit of a break. Grade when you're most alert. Choose a time in the day when you're most productive, and have go-to reply prompts for those days when you're drawing blanks, right? Save your responses. If you take time to do a really thorough response, save that response in a folder on a Google Doc or on Drive somewhere. And then break things up by groups. Grade one discussion at a time so you can keep student posts in context. This will also allow you to observe the dynamic of the group, and it'll provide you with a way to measure progress and grade the discussions and how to engage them further, or maybe assign groups, or how to change the groups up the next time. All right. So do you have a connection with your students? Relationships are often difficult online, and Karen talked about the face-to-face classes provide opportunities to culture relationships without a whole lot of extra work. You're face-to-face. You see the kid. You can tell if they're sad. You can tell if they're struggling. You can see it. You can see their work. You're able to see, talk, interact with students every day. But an online class requires you to be much more diligent and intentional with your attempts to build relationships with students. You can use announcements, feedback, messages, discussion boards. Every decision you make online is an opportunity to communicate with your students. Get to know them. Print a hard copy list of your roster. Use this to note something about students while you're facilitating. Make notes about each student beside your master roster. Record any accommodations or extensions they need on an assignment. Use emails to check in with students as short as 2 sentences. Reuse these messages by copying and pasting them in. Hey, just checking in. How are you doing with assignment 29? Take a minute and give me a couple sentences on where you are with this assignment. Okay, it just takes so long, right? Okay, so here, yes, time is the obstacle most teachers struggle with the most. Grading a discussion board, it feels like it's very time consuming. It begins to feel like a task instead of an essential part of teaching. You can apply the 20-80 approach to assist you. Only enter comment for 20% of the students who have the lowest scores. Tell them what they are missing and specifically how they can improve, and then create a generic message to the other 80% who are performing satisfactory. One thing I do in Canvas personally is I set the thread to be graded, and then I also will grade their responses. So they have to have two threads and 4 replies maybe. And so I'll look for those submissions in Canvas, and it helps me maintain the grading. Okay, so a thing to think about. Okay, funny. All right, so here's me. Yes, that's me at Northwood High School back when Dr. T was my department chair. And so I actually got that picture from a student who I taught my second year of teaching, or first year of teaching. She sent it to me on Facebook and said, I remember I took this of you when you were teaching in class. So anyway, maybe I was creating community way back then, but it starts with us. And the 3 keys to community that I found were relationship, engagement, and communication. And so in an online class, how do I create and cultivate a sense of community, build a relationship, promote deeper engagement, and communicate effectively? How do teachers create community relationships, of course, teacher to student, but also student to student. So you have to nurture and facilitate those student to student relationships too. A good way to start is to establish a solid teacher and student relationship by showing the students you care and are invested. Share part of your personal life. Let them know there's a human being on the other end of the computer, and that you're here to engage with them. And so I shared a video introduction that my colleague Dawn did. She's into yoga, has 4 kids, loves to read and travel, and her daughter does dance, and one does karate. And so she incorporated all of that into her video introduction, which really connected with the kids right away. I also did one myself, but I thought it would be more prudent to share hers. And then visual syllabus, I shared Dr. Linton's from 654, as well as her video syllabus from Dr. Linton's Education 654. The welcome email, I used Dr. Temple's example, and a welcome announcement, Dr. T's example. I used instructor bio and picture. I shared my course picture and bio. And then personal stories. I talked about the personal stories that I may have shared on like on Halloween. I did the history of Halloween and why we celebrate it, and I always do that with holidays. I think students find it interesting, but I also threw a picture of my children in their costumes, made it more personal. Have a thing. One of the things that in NCVPS that I always liked about Michelle Lorsey, who used to be our director of OCS, and she's now moved up. She's something bigger. She's over all of NCVPS now, I think, or one of the top ones. But she always started and ended every meeting with the Bee Gees music. Everybody knew she loved the Bee Gees, and so that was kind of her thing. Like every meeting you would go into, if you heard the Bee Gees music playing, you knew it was Michelle Lorsey, and she was going to be running the meeting, and she ran a good meeting. So you were excited when you heard it. So know your why. So this is a video that I saw that really touched me, and it kind of helps kids understand. More so, maybe more of an adult understand, but students can definitely relate to this. But it's called Know Your Why, and there's a guy in it, and this guy's at this comedy show, and he's doing stand-up comic, and like in the commercials, when they take a break, he just kind of interacts with the audience. And so he was interacting with the audience, and he always asked them questions. And this one guy taught, and he was like, "What do you do, sir?" And he's like, "Oh, I sing." He's like, "Oh, can you sing?" He was like, "Yeah." And so he sings Amazing Grace. And the guy's like, "Okay, so you sing, but now I want you to sing like you just got out of prison. Everybody in your life had told you weren't going to be anything, but you did it anyway, and you overcame all these adversities and all this terrible hard road stuff. And I want you to sing like that." And so then he sang Amazing Grace again, and it was just so much better, and so much more feeling was in it. You could feel it, right? And the guy said, so now the first time you knew what you were doing, but the second time you knew why you were doing it. And in order to be your best version of your whatever you're trying to do, you got to know why. And so I thought that was a really cool video to show, and it was only like 2 minutes. So do not underestimate the power of announcement. So, announcements are a great place to remind people of things, to make it personal. Note the names here: Richard. Here's an example of this shout outs for Richard. He liked the Minions. This is my OCS English 4 class. He liked Minions, and so he liked to clean. He told me about that in the message, so I highlighted that. I wanted him to know I read his message and I got it. We talked about Beowulf and the epic hero journey, which was one of the things they had to do in their unit assessment. So I reviewed that in a quick little telegami short interaction there. And then here's another announcement. This is for Isaiah, who likes SpongeBob, and he had been working extra hard to catch up. And then we're talking about what we're doing for the all of VPS announcements have to celebrate, inform, and instruct. So there has to be a piece of that to everything. So here's the celebration on the left. In the middle, we're informing. Here's what we're doing. And then the instruction, where we're reviewing research, how to choose a topic. And so this had met all the 3 pillars of VPS, but it also helps to build that community with students because they know you know them, making it personal, using it to review concepts. Here's one we're reviewing metaphor and simile, Zondel game. there's a presentation here, like a review of how similes and metaphors are different because students struggle with that. And then there's some extra practice in the form of a game. Also, people had sent information the day before, so there's an acknowledgement of that. So celebrating that they sent a message and responded, informing them what we're going to do today, and then having some instruction and with some review. So again, the announcements can be a very powerful tool in communicating with students, and they also get an alert and a notification that there is an announcement, so they're more likely to read that. Engagement can be one of the most powerful motivators in the classroom. So how do you know if a student's engaged? What does an engaged online student look like? Okay, so if you're teacher-directed learning, you see students paying attention, tracking their eyes, taking notes, listening, asking questions, responding to questions, following requests. But when students direct their learning, you'll see students individually or in small groups reading critically, pen in hand, writing to learn, creating, planning, problem solving, discussing, performing, presenting, exploring, etc., interacting and moving. Now, you can't see this in an online classroom, so how do you do that? How do you take all of that and apply it to an online classroom? Engaged means that students are active. They are active in the course. They are active in discussion boards. They are actively communicating with you. They are actively submitting assignments. And so if true learning has to occur, then students have to be at the very least participants in the process and not merely products, right? So they have to be actively engaged. So if a teacher wants to increase engagement, then the teacher needs to think about student activity and ask students something with the knowledge that they have learned. So break up the lecture with learning activities. Let them practice, get them motivated, get them talking, get them active in the course. Make it so engaging it will be difficult for them not to participate. So the majority of teachers pick up on the audience cues when they direct and teach, and they can tell if students are sleepy or bored or anything. And online, especially when it's asynchronous, you have to rely on the communication and the submissions to measure engagement. But no matter how hard you work at making it interesting, a lecture is still a lecture. And having students simply listen is a passive action. So you want to get them actively engaged in their own learning, not just listening all the time. And if you do have to do a little video lecture or something, do it quickly. Do it in short, concise snippets. And use different modes of technology to do it. Don't always just do a PowerPoint or a video. Engagement is not always easy. So the ultimate engagement is to put the learner in charge of learning. So create a learning environment and motivation to learn where the students do the hard work of learning while the teacher facilitates. So it takes a lot of effort and a lot of upfront planning. It sounds easy, but it's definitely not, right? So being a facilitator is hard, right? A lot of teachers find it hard to give up their control of the room. So, but just keep trying, keep putting forth the effort, and keep getting the students to be active. Make them have active roles in the class. Get them to be actively interacting with your course. Use a variety of technology tools. Offer choice in assignments. Be present in the course. Be timely with your response. Be timely with feedback. Plan lessons that require creative thinking and critical thinking and problem-solving skills, not just, read and tell me what you read kind of a thing. Use those higher level thinking skills on Maslow's hierarchy and think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Use technology to transform learning. Think about the SAMR model and the TPAC. Make the content relevant. Be clear on expectations and make sure students understand why they need to learn this. Why is it important? Relate it to their life if you can. Here's Kahoot. Okay, so some classes love it. It fills downtime and high engagement drill and practice here, right? So this is a Kahoot game that a lady named Cynthia Tucker did in one of our NCVPS meetings, and people enjoyed it. Use Ingflip meme generators. Like here's a class that expressed a liking for Star Wars, and so this teacher did Miss Frisco's class, worked hard and learned much you did, right? So they used a little Yoda celebration. Here's a personalized celebration fast using a metaphor, which is one of the concepts that she was teaching about or that was taught about here, and then you both are the bomb, and she did a Wordle with their names in an actual bomb, right? So it was kind of a personalized yet reminder of what the concept was. Zondel, love Zondel. It helps students play a little game, a little short game. They pick the question. It's very interactive, easy to search a question bank. It's got already a lot of stuff already published and done that you can use and reuse for free. All right, Zaption, okay. Presenattion has lessons you can choose from. Sample Kahoot, we played that Kahoot as a group. It was like I think it was a Macbeth anticipation guide or something like statements. Do you agree with it? Like it's better to be. Um, it was questions like what was it? Sometimes war is necessary. Do you agree with this or not? You know, things like that. Murder is, you know, sometimes it's okay to do the wrong thing for the right reasons, or etc. Think controversial statements that we discussed. And then communication. Are you accessible to your students? Do your students know how they can reach you? Do they know when you hold office hours? Do they feel comfortable asking you questions? How many ways can a student communicate with you? How long should your students expect to wait before hearing from you? Ways you can communicate: email, chat, discussion board, Google Talk, Google Classroom, text, course messenger service, office phone, feedback, directions to assignments, syllabus, announcements, blogs, Zoom. Positive communication can change everything. Do not underestimate the power of every communication you have with your students. Each and every communication helps build community and open dialogue necessary in authentic learning. Communication through feedback is also important. It's very important to use that feedback to communicate specific and directive feedback and to teach through this feedback. Tune do. It takes a little longer, but easy to save an image and use it again and again and again. Here's Fanboys Conjunctions Alley, a little cartoon there. Students were struggling with conjunctions. So here's a little comic that we shared to use with our students. Avoki. Great for individual feedback. It's fast and it's free. You can even use this Voki to create what's the difference between adjectives and adverbs, a little short little mini review with your voice and this talking head, and then you can personalize it in your text. So it's a great thing to reuse to teach concepts that students struggle with. Jing. Specific learning needs, especially read aloud. You can show students the click-by-click process on your page. So in review, build relationships, nurture them, engage your students, keep them engaged, communicate effectively and timely in a variety of ways. And the best advice is to humanize your online class. And this was a picto chart about how to humanize your online class. Let me see what that is. I don't even remember. And it's not, here it comes. All right, so it's loading here, I think. Okay. Presence, empathy, awareness, choice, control, challenge, collaboration, consequences, constructing meaning, learning domains, the different hierarchy there, affective versus cognitive learning. Here you've got the community of inquiry. Okay, so you can take a look at that if you want to. Let's see, where was I at? Okay. All right, and let's see. I think we're almost done. Here's the contributors. And then we did a mini book review, and we just kind of talked about here. Yeah, we gave some words the author gave, what his purpose was in this book, where you could buy the book, a short snippet of what you'll learn if you read the book, kind of like a little review. And so that's what we think about that. So we had them do an exit Padlet. We played some music, and we offered to answer any questions in the class as well as via Canvas message if somebody thought of something later. We also shared out our work. Okay, and that was notes that we had. That was our module focus and notes. Okay. So yeah, that was a fun thing to create and a fun thing to work on with Dr. T and Karen. And I really learned a lot, especially from Karen, who brings the business world into, I'm always thinking education terms, and she really brought in the other side to how all these things can translate into training in the business world. And so that was an interesting to get those different perspectives. And so I really enjoyed this assignment. And I learned a lot about just that teacher presence again, hitting home, and how important communication is, and engagement. And the biggest takeaway I had from this was more of how students need to be actively engaged in their learning. Like I need to, and one thing I found that I do is, every day in my classes online, I'm getting them to submit something. If it's a Padlet post, or if it's just a quick response to a discussion board, or if it's an assignment, or if it's a little mini Zondel game review, or something, but I'm getting them to interact daily, making them be active in the course. I use announcements every day, and that helps my students with their independent time. Here's what you should be doing from 8:25 to 9:10. At 9:10, we're going to go live, and here's what we're going to do live in class. And then at the end of class, I'll take what we did live, and I'll make the agenda for the next day. So I'm constantly sending things out to students. One thing I'd like to do more of is maybe send out that weekly announcement. It's hard because my class is not really designed weekly. It's more by modules because students come in at all times throughout the semester, not just week one. So my announcements are daily. I'm a work in progress, but this really just confirmed a lot of things I'd learned in grad school, and reading this book definitely, and I still have it. It's a great resource for going back to remind yourself, what makes for an engaged online active class.